Hello and welcome back. In a moment I'm in Niigata and as you can see here in the background we have a lot of snow. I'll show you this. Yeah, and I'm here in a traditional ryokan. I think you have seen this before in one of my videos. Oh, good lord. How to do that? Ah, yeah, here. It's a little bit. Yeah. Here is my futon. Anyhow, today I like to talk about some things about Japan which are not the same as in other countries in the world. For example, I mean, usually as a tourist you don't see them. And what happens is when you read the news, sometimes the crime news, you can find article where they indicate some kind of tradition you have never heard about. And one of this happened 2 years ago. A very famous person went to a funeral to one of his supporters. And after the funeral, he visited a brothel. However, you would think it's his own personal choice, which most probably it is, but what you wouldn't think is that this was at one time in Japan a tradition. So you go to the funeral and after the funeral you will go to a brothel. So what happened is there is a quarter in Tokyo where you have bathhouses, or also known as soaplands. Soaplands are basically brothels. You get a bath and then you get some other kinds of services. And this guy went after the funeral and the press followed him because he was so famous, and this is how they found out. 2 years ago, in total he spent 80,000 yen, 30,000 for the bath and 50,000 yen for the soap princess. So, I mean, when you read this article, you're for a moment, wait a minute, this is not a tradition, or they just made this up. But no, it wasn't made up. It's a true story. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Yeah. And another story. Oh yeah, I think this was recently. It was also reported in some of the crime news, like Nippon News or Senkei Shimbun, somewhere there. This guy licked the hair of a woman, and the woman complained about it. And maybe you have heard this before, but I have never heard about such a thing. The story is, I mean, you all have heard about these schoolgirls having sugar daddies in Japan. And when you see schoolgirls on the streets, I mean, how you can identify them as schoolgirls? They're wearing uniforms. But some of them, they are not in school anymore, they just wear it for whatever reason. I think this was also a recent story. It was about a 16-year-old schoolgirl. There is apparently an app for sugar daddies. So she found herself a sugar daddy, and the story went like this. They met in a restaurant and she agreed to accompany him to some dates. So he will pay her for this. And I mean, she's 16 and he was 29. The whole thing is already questionable because you're an adult with 20. So does she need her parents to agree to this? It's one question from my side. Secondly, is the app legal? And if so, so this is legal in Japan, and this means for me also this is, the parents agree to it from my point of view, but maybe I'm wrong. So, but what happened? They were meeting in a restaurant, and then he took photos under the table from her. And she was, wait a minute, you haven't paid for the service, I get 40,000 yen from you. And he agreed to pay for this. However, taking photographs under the table without agreeing to it before, it's illegal. They went separate ways, and then she texted him, hey, I want 150,000 yen for it. But he said no. And then he went to the police because this girl wanted money from him for a service he already paid for. So have a guess who got arrested? The guy? No, the girl got arrested. I mean, that's strange, huh? I would say the guy would get arrested and the girl's parents were called to the police station, and that's it. But no, the girl got arrested, and she's 16 and he's 29. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what she did was not right, but at the same time, she's 16. Yeah. So another story is, okay, you can find this also in Western culture. This guy stole sneakers from schools around the area and for sexual satisfaction. So I think you can find this also in Western countries. So this is nothing very unusual. The story is about gold bar smuggles from outside from Japan into Japan. There was a story 1 or 2 years, 1 year ago maybe. A gang of 6 tried to smuggle gold bars into Japan, and they would avoid taxes. In total 15,000 euro or 16,000 US dollar. And what they did, they will look out, they will search online for a plane which goes international from Taiwan to Nagoya, and then from Nagoya to Tokyo, as a first international flight and then a domestic flight. On the international flight, one person would board the plane in Taiwan and then hide the gold bars in the toilet. Then, after arriving in Nagoya, this person will leave the plane without the gold bars, and the plane will go on to Tokyo. But in Nagoya, another gang member will board the plane, and during the flight he will take out the gold bars from the toilet, and then he leaves the plane in Tokyo. And since this is a domestic flight, there is no custom control. So gold smuggle is still a big thing in Japan. I was surprised about this. But maybe you can hear this also in other countries, so I don't want to say this is only Japan. However, a custom control official found the gold bars in the plane. Yeah. So they're quite fit here, the police here in Japan. Here's another one. I mean, very often you see drunk salarymen on trains, and on the internet they're circulating these funny pictures when there's how they're sleeping in the train and all this. I mean, it's also pretty serious, I have to say, because every year around Bonenkai, so end of year parties, some people just get too drunk and they sleep wherever they want. And last time this guy slept on the street and he was driven over and he died. But here's another story about this. You have this self-defense force, the Japanese self-defense force, and this guy went out, I think somewhere in the north in Japan, drank too much, entered a residence. He didn't know who this people was, just a stranger. Took off his clothes and then he went out and slept outside on the road, and it was 7.5 minus degree. So you can imagine, a little bit too cold. But the resident called the police and they caught him. No, I'm not so sure if his career is over with SDF, but at least he's alive. No, yeah. So that's it for today. It's a very short video. I have visitors from Germany. We are now in Niigata. Here's my futon, and there's a futon cupboard. We have this flat table here, yeah. And soon around 6 o'clock we have dinner, and I have to go down. Maybe I put some photos from that in, but there's not much more to tell you. This week. Next week I will come back with some more interesting video. Bye.